You're listening to Health Coach Conversations, a podcast where our conversations help health coaches all around the world to level up our businesses and to get more clients. You have a couple of books, right?
Well, I have one book that just came out on the 28th of June, and then I have a second book coming out at the end of the year.
Okay. And what's the one that just came out and what's the one that's coming out at the end of the year?
And I can mention it if it's easier. The first one is Surviving Suicidal Ideation.
Okay.
From Therapy to Spirituality and Lived Experience with the Swedenborg Foundation. And then the second one is Planet Walking, a handbook for the living with O-Books, coming out holidays 2024.
And it's Planet Walking?
Yes.
Okay. First, let's talk about the first book, the suicide book. That one, you got Thomas More to review it. And
he's the foreword.
And he wrote the foreword too. And well, it sounds like you've done really well with getting the right people to look at your books. How did you do that?
Oh my goodness. Well, just to me, honestly, Spirit helped me. I didn't have the connections. These were all new connections that came to me. And I put the project together and we did a really nice book proposal and along with Dr. Amelia Kelly. And I sent it off blindly to about 60 publishers and we got several offers. So it was just fate.
And a good topic.
I think that's why it was universally gotten some attention. We got a lot of notes from a lot of publishers, people coming in and saying how important it was. So it was very encouraging to see that media and publishers were willing to put time and energy into these kind of topics, which my goal is to actually bring levity towards the topic so other people can feel comfortable in doing it and bringing it out of the darkness and into the light. And sharing my own experience so people can feel comfortable in understanding that authentically I understand where they are. And I want to show them if they're not here, where they could go. And that it's possible to heal such an affliction.
Yeah, I know what the first book is about. That one's pretty clear. What is the second book about?
The second one is more about how to live on the planet, as in spiritual or just, how to be here. And it's basically a dream of mine because as a child, and when I was watching Beetlejuice, the movie, there was a handbook for the deceased. And I thought that was so cool. But what about a handbook for the living? And so this is actually a culmination of spiritual contracts, how we live in the world, how energy works in our body. I actually illustrated it as well, all our different energy centers and how they work together. And I did it in little bite-sized pieces, specifically for people that have short attention spans and don't want to read a lot of text. And I also did illustrations to explain how energy moves through the body when you're making love or having a baby or all these different things. So people could just look at the imagery if that's what they choose.
I'm reading this next question I have for you. And I can tell you that I know a few people that are at the stage right now. Sometimes life feels like there's no end in sight. And as a matter of fact, somebody said this to me yesterday. It's like she's waiting for the next shoe to drop because it's just been one thing after another. Yes. How do we shift out? And we talked about this very subject last night. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. How do we shift out of that negative energy around us and within us every day?
Thank you for this question. Yes, we have the power within us. It's something that has to be done on an individual, dedication. Unfortunately, healing and doing this work is a solo sport. Although we can get support from the people around us, but it's us that has to decide which direction we're going to go. If we're going to go left or we're going to go right. And so making understanding that you belong here, that you, as you are right now, wherever you are, you're supposed to be here. You have a life purpose. You have to get in touch with your mind, body, spirit, soul, or energy if you only want to deal with energy. But you have to make that connection that this is you're a magical being, and there's so much you can do with this time that you're here on the planet. So start to do that. And then you really start to work on ways to fall back in love with yourself. Because I found that a lot of people that are feeling this way, they're feeling disconnected from their self, disconnected from their spirit, disconnected from the world around them. They don't really love themselves in the moment. If I ask them that, do you truly love yourself? So falling deeply and madly and passionately in love with yourself, you won't want to hurt yourself. You will start to want to feed it better food, and everything else will start to fall into place.
I know, don't ever tell them make a gratitude journal. I learned that.
Agree with, I'm not into that as much too. I mean, I'm about energy, and I used to get mad at people, or not mad, but I would get irritated when people would be like, well, you're all this spiritual person now, you still are angry at times. It's like, this is not a magic pill. I mean, we just got to come back to common sense.
Yeah. Why and how does showing up with this mindset affect someone's life?
Are you talking about when they're in the darker moments, or when they're in lighter moments?
Both.
Okay. When you're in the energy, everything to me, I talk about as an energy, right? And it's sort of like the spiral up is the positive energy, and the happiness and the joy and the love, and the spiral down is the resentments and the jealousies and the self-pitying. And we pretty much all understand the wheel, right? So the negative energy can really almost put, like, it can case you in gray matter, right? And if you think about this, you love yourself. You don't want yourself encased in gray matter, right? If you were to imagine this visual, do you want clouds all around you? No, of course not. And what's going to happen is you're going to manifest illnesses. You're going to manifest the wrong people in your life. You're going to trauma bond with other people that have similar traumas, and you're just going to start hurting each other, not on purpose, because you haven't healed those traumas, because you haven't healed those wounds. And those wounds take a long time to heal. But the first thing is to be aware of them and say, I know where my wound is, and I know what happened now because of that wound. I have a fear of abandonment. I have these fears. And listing them out and understanding what they are, now you can recognize when you're going to be triggered or when you're going to go off the rails. So that's when you're in the dark. And I don't even like to use the dark, kind of like the lower vibrational energy that we can all understand. But when you start doing practices like grounding and light, love yourself type of things like baths and working out and moving is such a great way to get rid of the dark matter off your energy. And once you start kind of walking more into the light and falling in love with yourself, my favorite thing to explain is I feel like we all have little mini mountains in our entire life that we're dealing with, every single one of us. And we can look at those mountains, and we can either take a boulder with us up the mountain where we feel depleted and like we're crashing, or we can drop that boulder, put an axe in our hand, and climb up that mountain with an axe with purpose. Because the mountain's going to be there, the conflict's going to be there, the obstacle is going to be there. It's how you move through those things is what changes with self-love and awareness and love for others. And it starts to spill all around you. We all have, then we can deal with all these conflicts that come sometimes on a daily basis. We have a conflict, and they could be small or big. But what happens when people have suicidal ideation, they are waiting for that big thing to come. And they know what's going to happen. They're going, the record's going to start to play of self-worthlessness, self-pity, all the things that they told themselves all this time when they lose a job, when they lose a partner or a friend. They play that record, and then they start to go down, 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 down. And hopefully they don't. And they're afraid of that. They're afraid of those moments. So it's doing the work while they're especially in a good spot right now and saying, hey, I don't want to wait for that shoe to drop. I'm going to do it now because it's coming. That shoe's going to come. So while I'm in definitely a little bit of a healing space, why don't we work on it So when it does come, I can move through it with breath, with kindness for myself, and, do that kind of work.
You said that you had a story to share. Can you share that story with us?
I have many stories.
Pick
Do
one.
you have any direction? I mean, how far do you want to go? Because in my book, they did ask for even more story. I didn't want to make it about myself, but they thought we need people to understand that you understand what feeling suicidal really feels like, and they need to know why you were that way. So, in the book, Surviving Suicidal Ideation from Therapy to Spirituality and the Lived Experience, I detailed a lot of different things. And my pain came from childhood abuse, an alcoholic mother and father. My dad was very violent. They got a divorce at 8. I lived with my father. It was probably not the best thing. And feeling unsafe, feeling unworthy created tools as a child where I could survive that life at the time. But when I moved into being an adult, those same tools that I was using as a child were ruining my relationships, were sabotaging my happiness. But I didn't understand that. This is how I had been programmed to live. So I was actually sabotaging my own happiness, and I didn't understand that. And I knew I was a good person. I know I had good qualities and good character. And you know, I was really, I was empathetic. I was ethical. I was a hard worker. I had all these things. But why wasn't my life going in a good direction? And so that's where the self pity comes in. You feel like it's luck, or you just got handed the wrong deck of cards. And now, oh, it's not going to be fixed. And the one thing about suicidal ideation that I make very clear in my work is that this can be actually healed much more than you believe. Some things are very difficult to heal, as we know. Different mental health conditions can be really hard to heal. And I'm not saying this is an easy journey, but this is actually something that you can do and work on yourself 24/7 with a plan in place, either with a mental health professional, or if you're afraid to talk to anybody, you can actually start working on it today. And I'm here to say that suicidal ideation can be healed. I cannot think of, I can't even bring those kind of thoughts up to my mind. I just start to giggle and laugh. That part of me is completely out of my system. I can't even hold on to that thought. It's completely healed in me to the point where I'm kind of starting to have difficulty even like going back to those old memories. They're fading. They're like not even a part of my infrastructure anymore. That's how healed they're getting. So I'm trying to capture writing these books while I can authentically understand. I remember being in that space. That's why I'm kind of hurrying and trying to get out so much content. But this is something that can be healed. And I want people to know that it's not like it's your eye color or your height, which is really hard to change, right? It's actually can be gone. You don't have to live this next part of your life with it. And when you realize that, you get excited. You're like, really? When that shoe drops, I don't have to go through those processes and take myself down. No, and we're here to help you figure out a way to where you can rise above those moments when they come.
Are you ready to transform lives and build a thriving wellness practice? At the Health Coach Group, we offer done-for-you courses, cutting-edge resources, and fully customized websites to health coaches like you. Join us and turn your passion into a profitable venture. Visit thehealthcoachgroup.com today.
What happens to our lives if we don't address it personally? And I know I asked you already what happened to you, but how have you seen it affect the people that you know, and what happens on a more collective level? Is that
If
too
you
many
don't,
questions at once?
no, I think if you don't address it, it's a slow death in itself. It's a sad life because there's always going to be an obstacle. So you're always waiting for something to happen. And we don't want people to live like that. We want people to choose a life that they prefer to surround to this planet is just so amazingly beautiful. finding beauty back in all those things. When you can fall, when you're suicidal, you can't hear music and the beauty in it. You can't feel when it feels to dance and feel the energy move through your whole body. You can't feel love deeply, like making love like a twin flame connection where your whole body is engulfed in this passion. You can't feel those things. You want them so badly. You want to feel them so badly, but you can't. So there's a disconnection that happens and a numbness that comes over the whole body. You can't go and do something like that to yourself if you're not numb and completely disconnected. It's reconnecting all those parts of yourself. And, I find so much joy in I feed birds and I have a set of doves that come out and see me every morning. And if I don't feed them, they're like, they start to sing and dance for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I couldn't feel that when I was suicidal or out of, not connected. And I walk out on my deck and I just see these beautiful birds and their wings and imagine what it must feel like to fly. And you can feel all these things again. So it's remembering that this beautiful planet is here with these amazing species, find a way to get reconnected again. If you need to take the trip of your life and go on safari so you can see elephants and giraffes, or go on a ship so you can see whales and dolphins, like whatever it is to get reconnected, to see the beauty of the world, go do it and go make a plan.
And so that's what you do. That's you look at the beauty around you. Is that how you get better?
Well, for me, everybody has their own journey, and you're the only one that knows what speaks to you 24/7, right? You have to make an effort. You have to produce your healing, as in this is the production of your life. And you have to have full awareness and commitment. And you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. But look at that list and know what they are. I have music playing almost on a constant hum in my house because I learned that and more like meditation music, because I learned that it keeps me uplifted even in sadder moments, right? I've learned that my body responds to music. If that's you, go get an iHome and put on meditation music all day on real low. You will be laying there. All of a sudden you'll hear like chimes and things like that you didn't even know were there. Exercise is so important, because as we've gotten more modern, we have lost our connection to the earth, and we have Wi-Fi going through us constantly, right? Everywhere. That is not a normal state of our energetic being. And it is resulting in depression and low frequency, because our body is trying to we have 50 trillion cells in our body that all have a little bit of energy in them. And they're getting jammed up by Wi-Fi signals. And also we're around a lot of cement, especially people that live in tall buildings. They're not getting earthing and connecting to the earth. And what happens when you connect to the earth is your body, the ions in your body completely connect in an energetic way and helps run this complex system of energy. So when people get stuck and don't have this energy transform, they will really feel stuck. So you either have to meditate or run your energy or jump in the ocean or go on a hike or go running or do yoga. But that's why these things are so beneficial, is what it does is it connects all these 50 trillion cells into one thing, and they start to work together more. And just in that process, you will get happier, and you will bring in the energy of love and joy just from that. And I like to use this analogy because people that have scientific minds, they love this, because they forget that every home, every building, when an electrician comes in to put in our wiring, this magic lighting that we have all around us, the first thing they do is they put in a grounding cord to run the energy of the house. Why do they do that? If they did not put that grounding cord onto that building, the energy would go everywhere. So when you get grounded is a way to control the energy, and then you can control it, then you can transform it. You can be in control. You can be in the driver's seat. And that's where you have seniority. If you need if say, I was kind of beaten. And so I would not speak my voice. And like if in meetings, I would get really nervous and I would have trouble, speaking my mind, and all the things in my mind would go like, you're unworthy, you're not educated enough to have this conversation or whatever. I would go into those emotions. What happens when you're grounded is you get your seniority, you get your strength, you get your voice, you learn how to communicate more in a way that benefits whatever you need. So now you go into the energy of strength versus the energy of weakness, and you can feel your own power. So the number one tool I use is called grounding, and I use it constantly all day long. Is the first thing I do, and it takes only seconds. And I imagine a grounding cord coming off my hips, 2 inches wider than my hips. And I send it all the way to the center of the earth. And this grounding cord can be made of a tree, like a redwood tree or a willow tree or oak tree, or even just a cylinder. And it's hollow on the inside. And I just say to myself, release any energy that's no longer serving me. So this could be fear. This could be jealousy, resentment. We all have all of these things. And it gently puts me into a strength position. And then I can call in the energy I want, that I prefer.
What are some of the people that you've worked with? Are there any stories you want to share with us? The things that have been like magical transformations?
Well, about 3 years into when I really started to, because this is about a 15-year journey. And about 4 years ago, I was laying in bed and I took some CBD because I couldn't sleep. And I'm very sensitive, so I don't really take anything. And it kind of made me a little high or something. I didn't even know that could happen. And I was feeling like, whoa. And I was like, okay. And I just kind of felt like I was in another time zone. It was so strange. And I'm sitting there, I'm in bed, and I had a spiritual experience. So my whole room filled with like white and gold light. And I just could hear some kind of energy that was telling me that, you have to now become a teacher. You have to share what you've learned. And I was sort of on the high of, I'm healed and I'm happy and I'm just going to go live my life. And they're like, no, you're going to be a teacher. And to me, becoming a teacher is a lot of responsibility, because you have to have the highest integrity of the land in my eyes to be a teacher. You have to constantly be working on yourself. You'd be learning new tools all the time. You have to just have this integrity, right? And so I was like, wow, that's really overwhelming. And they said, no, it's going to be okay. They gave me the name, the Liberated Healer. They showed me all the different things I was going to teach. And they showed me this book, and they pretty much outlined, I would say I don't even know, is like an energy. They outlined everything that I was going to be doing the next couple of years. And I stayed up all night long. I was so infused with this light and happiness and inspiration and excitement. I stayed up all night long. I created a website. I created a logo. I created a mission statement. I just was infused with this light. And that's when for me, felt like I truly knew that all this time I had never been alone. That really, for me, and that spirit was with me. And it almost gave me like this backbone that is still propelling me forward, that I'm not just this person alone on this journey. And it gives me such a sense of home. And I can't explain it even more than that, but I'm just so in love with my spiritual team. And I thank them every day that, and they show me little things here and there now, but I did have that kind of enlightened moment.
Most of our listeners are doctors and mental health specialists and health coaches and life coaches and nutritionists and nurses. So this next question, if you could maybe aim it towards them, do you have a quick method that they could use that has worked for you when teaching your clients to assist them in finding life purpose?
Yes. So in these cases, I tend to go towards the work of energy because it's taking kind of the spiritual out, right? Because we all can understand energy. And this quantum physics is something that everybody has to learn in school, but energy, it can be transformed. And when you do it, even with a person who might be struggling and expressing, hey, I'm having suicidal thoughts. Hey, I'm feeling this way. This can be incorporated with a program that is with a mental health professional. To be honest, I have seen a lot of positive results from EFT tapping, through the different points of the head and the hands. And that's moving the energy in ways that are taking their mind off the things that are influencing them into negative thought patterns. Also, the IFS system is I found it to be very beneficial to people where the Internal Family Systems by Robert Schwartz. I really enjoy that work because it does help to separate, especially when you are suicidal and you need to break down all the things that's happening within a person and their traumas and who they've become now. It's like a giant puzzle, right? So the IFF system helps people separate the parts so they can work independently on their things that affect them directly. And they can do it in an intelligent way. Because the thing that helped me the most, I would say, is that as I intellectualized what was happening to me, I felt a sense of safety. So this intellectualizing where you're breaking it down into smaller pieces, saying, yes, I have a childhood wound from an abuse. So let's take that out. Let's go and do some inner child work. Let's heal that child. So finding ways to breaking down the wounding in small bits and then doing meditation techniques. We all know this now that are very peaceful and calming. We need to get to a calming sense as much as possible. That's why I like the grounding or any affirmations or whatever any therapist or doctor likes to do. They all have their own techniques, but wrap that up with the IFS or the tapping and all the other things. But I really do encourage these alternative methods because they can only see you maybe once a week or maybe twice a week if they're lucky. So giving them tools to go home with is vital because these things will come over sometimes in the middle of the night and they need tools that they can go to at any given moment. So whatever you like, make sure they have something written out, printed out, practice that they can go to at any moment. Don't send them on their way without something that they can turn to immediately.
Need a comprehensive solution? The Health Coach Group's Platinum Packages offers a business in a box, providing everything you need to start and grow your wellness practice. Let's build your future together. Visit thehealthcoachgroup.com.
If you feel like somebody that you're working with is suicidal with maybe an imminent time frame, should we call somebody or have them call somebody?
Yes, I gently being their advocate and doing it ASAP and doing it in a gentle, with non-judgmental, non-fear, non-shaming. Those are the three things we have to be careful of. And if you yourself go into panic, you're aiding in the anxiety of it all. You have to stay calm. You have to take it seriously, but be gentle. You being there for them, sitting next to them, showing them that they're not alone, showing that they've been heard, and not panicking again and taking fear. I'll say it again because it's so important. Fear, shame, and judgment out of it. And just saying, okay. And going on, and there's like resources in our book completely listed out. 988 is a good one. You can text home to 741-741, and that's 24 hours a day. And the reason why this is good is a lot of people just like to text nowadays, especially youth. So they will start a text exchange and help you find somebody. But once you deal with that 911 where they told you that they have these thoughts, then you can go into a plan with either maybe other family members or a doctor. But it definitely is getting an outside counsel, building that supporting network. And when people are suicidal, I like to, it's not like depression. So depression, and this is, I'm not a doctor, but this is my experience from all the hundreds of people I've talked to. Most people who have suicidal ideation, it comes when a big life event happens or they're feeling really bad about themselves for some reason. They'll have months and months and months of productivity. I was extremely productive. There's not a single person in my network who thought I had suicidal ideation. I was an entertainment executive. I was very productive. I clicked all the boxes. So it's, but then I would have a divorce and I would go down for about 6 months, or I would lose a job, or me and my best friend would have a fight and that would take me down. Those are the old wounds would start to come up to the surface. So just recognize that it's a little bit different than depression, or somebody who has a clinical depression, they're that way for months and months and months. It's a little bit different. So it does come and go. And that's where the fear is because people that only have to, maybe this only happens once in a year, they don't want to stigmatize themselves and put this label on themselves when they know it's going to maybe be gone in a couple weeks. So they try to move through it on their own. And because they're like, well, I don't want my boss to find out or my friends to find out. I'm going to try to do it on my own. And that's where we're getting into a lot of difficult positions, because this is not something that should be alone, but it should not be a label that someone has to carry. This is a momentary time that they need some support. We need to figure kinder ways, non-judgmental ways that they know it's not going to affect their career. It's not going to affect their stance in the community. I mean, it's horrible. And I saw a story about a teenager who called one of these resources, and he was young, and they sent an ambulance to his house. And then everybody in school found out. It was debilitating to this poor youth who now feels shame from his entire school that he has, that one moment had suicidal ideation. And now his whole life has changed. He's having to work his way back even harder. So it's being really cautious about letting them communicate, because it's like a tea kettle that's been left on too long and it's starting to shake. They need to let the air out. Let them let the air out. Just listen. Let them let it out. Because as they start to speak, they start to feel a lot better. Okay, I just needed to tell somebody, like, I feel disconnected. I feel numb. And I need help. And then you can make a safety plan, which is online, or it's on my website, liberatedhealer.com or drameliakelly.com. We have safety plans on there. You can even, some of the things that I recommend for people is who know that they're suicidal off and on, to record videos of your family. Like if you have kids, have your kids record, hey dad, hey mom, how are you today? I love you. Don't forget, I love you. Have those videos available. If you don't have those kind of family members, or you don't want to tell people, record your dogs or things that speak to you. And then also write a letter to yourself. Just say, dear self, I know today sucks, but you're supposed to be here. When you're feeling good, write a letter to yourself, to your future self, who's going to have a shitty day. Excuse my language. But that is what it is. It's write a letter to yourself so you can pull it out. I've talked to survivors who keep those letters with them everywhere they go.
Yeah. So finding things that are important that makes a lot of sense. Family members who not only mean a lot to them, but they also need them. I think that having somebody need you at a time like that is really important.
The videos is honestly, when I heard that somebody did that, I was like, that's the key.
Yeah.
Your mom or dad, and you see this video of your child.
How can you do it? Yeah.
Saying, Daddy, I love you. don't forget I love you. They will probably cry and feel that despair, but they will find a way, the courage, to just walk on
Lift up.
because of that
Yeah.
video. And I'm hoping, at least, I really want to see the numbers come down. They're staggering. They're more than we ever thought. The suicidal rates are 1 in 11 minutes in the United States, 1 every 40 seconds in the world. We lose 1 million people in the world a year. We lose 50,000 people in the United States, which is double the homicide rates in the United States. And those are people that have unalived themselves. Then we have attempts which are into millions. I think the number is like 12 million a year. The attempts are more female, but the completions are more male. The completions are 80% male. And then
why is that? Because the male will take a gun where the female will take a pill?
Maybe, but what it is that men are not programmed to communicate, or as in society, that they're able to communicate and share their feelings as much as females. And then we have suicidal ideation. We don't know how many people have ideation. How about if it's in 90 percentile? How do we know? We don't. So we need to take the stigma and the shame away from it. And that's why I'm out talking about my story, because it's like, oh, she did it. She lived through it. She's created tools that work for her. Maybe I can do it too, and find that hope and get it out of your system so you can live the life that you prefer. And we can watch the numbers go down. It's absolutely tragic. Every single soul that we lose. Absolutely tragic. And what happens is the fastest age range is 10 to 14 right now. So what that means is that the youth is mimicking the adults. And we know that. They mimic us in social media. They mimic us in everything we do. So I always tell people, if you can't do it for yourself, do it for the children of the world. If you need one thing to say, oh, my life is terrible and it's never going to be better. Okay, if that's what you need to know right now, but do it for the kids that need to watch the adults. And sometimes that can trigger something in someone. Said, you're right. I got to represent myself as an adult. And I don't want kids to see that this is a possible way out. If we can, as adults, come together, be healthier. Look at social media. Those are a bunch of adults saying a bunch of horrible things. And then they have children. And then they wonder why the children are bullies, or they wonder why children are depressed. They're only mimicking the adults. So we have to think globally, but act locally, and make sure that we are, as adults, being ethical and kind in all of our contributions. Doesn't mean that we're going to have bad days, or that we're going to be angry at somebody, or we're going to have those bad things. But we have to find healthier ways of expressing ourselves, because they're just mimicking us.
Well, and you know what? With mental health, I was thinking that when you go to a doctor now, they give you a sheet and it says, how many times have you thought about killing yourself? And how many drinks do you have every night? And how many people are going to answer that? I mean, you answer it that you've had this many surgeries, or that you've had this many broken bones, but there's no way anybody's going to say, I feel like killing myself 3 times this week.
There's a stat on that. 45% of people have killed themselves or unalived themselves 1 month before seeing their doctor.
Really?
So we know for a fact, this is a stat, there's all over the internet, there's videos on it. We know they're not telling their doctor. They're not telling him. So it's one person that they should feel safe enough to do so.
Mm-hmm.
It's fact. And
you'd wonder what the doctor would do. What would a doctor do if you answered that? Well, first thing, the person in the front office would read it and maybe tell Aunt Zelda that, what it says on there. That's what would run through my head, is what would they do with that information? I don't know, but it seems like that's something that it should be. Mental health things should be made more mainstream and acceptable, just like a stubbed toe.
And they don't. And what I believe is they're incorporating more training nowadays. But from what I was told just recently, The only area that has a specific suicidal ideation training is when you're in a psychology school, and
Mhm.
it's in your third year, and it's while you're in a hospital where people are already in there for it. So they're not really exactly trained to deal with it as it's happening. And I'm talking about police officers. Police officers, I
Definitely.
think they're saying 80% is domestic violence or mental health.
Mhm.
80%. So we need more training to support our people trying to help us. It's but we just need these trainings. So for police officers, for firefighters, for every single medical professional, I think should have suicidal ideation training at every level. It should be incorporated in every single, whatever kind of doctor you're trying to be or nurse, it should be for every, like they train on CPR
Mhm.
because we don't know, like I said, we don't know how many people are having ideation. So, and it could come out of nowhere. And then you're like, I don't know how to handle this. So I just think these blanketed processes would be helpful to incorporate into all of those medical professionals.
While we're talking about that, and I know we're about to run out of time, but a lot of the people who are listening are coaches too, and they work with lifestyle management.
Mhm.
Does a lot of the mental health problems come back to, habits like eating and getting exercise and getting enough sleep and having too much stress? If we approach those, even just those 4 things as lifestyle managements, would that help with this issue?
Yeah, and pick the one that you want to do first because it gets overwhelming if you're instructing them to do it. Like they have to live a perfect life. Like nobody has a perfect life. Pick one thing and start to embrace that, whether it's and what is going to have the most effect first. So, for example, I think probably some type of exercise, right? So if you're going to still eat some of the, maybe like pizzas and french fries and stuff like that, but you're going to go on a walk or a run. You know what I mean? Like you can't
Mhm.
tell them I would get overwhelmed too when people would say, you got to eat better, you got to exercise, you got to read books. And it was just so overwhelming. And you're like, now I'm going into something what I call the energy of perfect pictures or trying to be perfect. And that puts you into the energy of what I call effort. And effort is stalling. Effort now overwhelms that person who's already overwhelmed. So let's pick one and let's master it and feel good and then pick the next one. It's a long process. But once you start to love yourself, again, going back to that self-love, you're really going to be careful of who you let in your space, what food you ingest. You're going to
Yeah.
change what you will accept and not accept in a relationship. Your boundaries are naturally going to get better and stronger.
Yeah, you
So
get the endorphins going, and those will help a little bit too.
yeah. So it's all a big ball, but don't overwhelm them with too many tasks. I really realize that because then that will shut them down
Be gentle.
because you can't do everything at one time. And I would get overwhelmed by when people would do that, like look at everything. It's like, I can't go on a diet and start a workout regime and and go back to school all at the same time. And then literally it's setting them up to fail.
Right. Well, you've given us a lot to think about today, and we're gonna have to run out and get your books.
Oh, yay.
We'll put the links to get the books underneath the podcast interview so everybody can get it. And then you've got a website that we can list under there too. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. The liberatedhealer.com is where all my books and some of my teachings and programs are. Dr. Amelia Kelly is my co-author, and she has like 12 therapists under her. She's a great resource, and I appreciate her and the work with the Swedenborg Foundation. That's surviving suicidal ideation from therapy, which is Dr. Kelly, spirituality, and the lived experience, which is my experience. And then in the holidays, where I have Planet Walking, a handbook for the living coming out through O Books. And I'm actually doing a documentary right now, and I just got a nonprofit fiscal sponsor. And this is going to be on how, as a collective, we heal suicidal ideation and create more resources for people. And I also want to put a thought in people's head that I wanted to form as a collective Suicidal Ideation Anonymous and attach it to maybe the AA group of resources, because if anything should be anonymous at this time, it's suicidal ideation. And back in the day, we really needed, alcoholics they needed to be anonymous. It was a very taboo thing in a society. And now we kind of understand alcoholism a little more. I think suicidal ideation is this thing that we need to embrace as we did alcoholics in the 50s. We need to put a lot of research and energy and attention again in what I'm talking about in levity. Let's bring it lighter. It's not so doom and gloom. Of course, the end result is doom and gloom. But as we talk about it, as we share about it, we bring light into it and levity to it. And we do that through these communications that you're giving me this opportunity today. And that's why I'm so grateful for you and everyone who's listening, and want to send a big hug to anybody who needs it today.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you liked what you heard, please give us a 5-star rating or review on iTunes.